everybody, thanks for dropping by. So today we're dealing with a destroyed central console on a 2016 Ford Focus. We'll be replacing the part, that's why this video is about removing and refitting it. However, I'd like to share some thoughts on the issue that caused this damage a little bit later on. So to start this whole process, you start from this point right here in the middle. This is just a clip-on piece, but as you can see we are very careful because many pieces, not only in this model but also in other modern cars, use clips and fasteners to fit in place, and some screws of course, but every video I found shows guys pulling them like there's no tomorrow. Next is this little piece to the right side of the dash. This small piece just clips on with these three tabs. Next there is the gear stick bezel. This piece is also a clip-on piece and it moves up and backwards for disassembly.
Opa. Pusta έξω αυτό.
Next up, the screws. There are 5 screws in total, Torx 25 heads, one behind the shifter here, one on either side of the bezel on top, here and here, and 2 more screws in the middle which nobody seems to have noticed. I actually almost break that piece trying to pull it out because none of the videos I found mentions these 2 screws. So next, remove the lower bezel around the shifter. And then these 2 screws, be very careful of these 2 screws as they are the screws that hold the upper bezel in place. If you don't remove them, you won't be able to remove the upper bezel. Unclip the connector and these 4 screws that hold the radio controls in place, so go ahead with those. These are Torx 20 heads. Yeah, that damage is quite extensive. The used one we found costs us around 80 euros. And then you simply follow the reverse order to put everything back in position. Connect any connectors that needed to be disconnected and clip back the pieces. Now I don't show in the video, but at some point I needed to remove the shifter boot in order to better manipulate the lower part. You may or may not need to do that. It's really up to you. This bezel needs to be installed properly. I don't clip it in the right order. You first need to insert the lower clips and then clip the upper part. That's why you'll notice that it took me quite some time to fit it in place. So take that into consideration.
πιάσει εδώ. Λοιπόν, πιάσει αυτό εδώ που το κάνεις έτσι και αυτό πάει από εδώ και μετά πιάσει και εδώ που το κάνεις, που το πατάς εδώ. Άρα λοιπόν πρώτα ξεκινάς από εδώ κάτω, φίλε, γιατί έχει δύο δοντάκια που πρέπει να πάνε στην ευθεία.
And then the middle decorative piece. As you can see, I'm gentle with the pieces, even in the refitting process, and I advise you to be too, because really, I don't trust these plastic tabs. I feel they may break at any point, so be gentle with them at all times. And the final piece to the side, and you're done. Great job! Okay, now let's pause for a moment and check out that damage on the old piece. Now, I do confess I have very little experience in the issue of mounting objects on a dash. Now, this console was destroyed in the first place because the owner used glue. Well, he wanted to mount a smartphone holder in that position, and more importantly, he didn't want to hurt the plastic, well, in case he may want to remove it for some reason. Well, perfectly understandable. My initial suggestion was to drill two small holes, 2.5mm diameter, maybe one if it worked, and mount that holder in that position, and if he wanted to remove it for some reason, all he'd have to do is to remove the screws and the piece would come off, with the only trace remaining being a small 2.5mm hole, which in reality is barely visible. Now, he didn't like the idea of drilling the plastic. He probably thought I'd be making a big hole in there. I don't know. He tried double-sided adhesive tape, which wasn't effective due to the curvature of the plastic, and eventually he used some kind of glue, which had the results we see. What I want to share with you in this aspect is that using glue or similar adhesive substances should be your last option, not your first. Glues and adhesives react with the plastics and they cause damage, and they should really be your absolute last choice. Depending on the material, there are different mounting options available. For instance, this dash from a Hyundai i20 is all plastic, and you can easily use screws or double-sided adhesive tape to mount an object. It is quite flat, so maybe a suction cup holder will work. On the other hand, this dash on a Citroën C5 is rubbery and not solid at all. And notice the texture. So you really can't use screws or suction cups here. Double-sided adhesive tape may do the job here, or this PU pad may be up to the task. Other dashes are quite smooth, so again, PU pads or suction cups will do the trick. And again, double-sided adhesives will work fine. In this Mazda Tribute, we've used PU pad here, which we've removed, as you can see, and it didn't leave any significant residue apart from that little stain, which can be easily removed with rubbing alcohol. In this case though, in the same car, I managed to use screws inside this shelf and mount that holder in the best possible position on the dash. And as you can see, I didn't mention glue even once, and there's a reason for that. Here is the reason. The client pursued what he perceived as a simple, subtle and harmless solution and ended up having a much worse result than two small holes. Maybe one. It is this type of mistakes I see that lead me to always pursue other ways of mounting objects on dashes than using glues or adhesive substances. And that's why I want to let people know that glues are indeed a good option for the cases where they are designed to be used, but they are not the best solution for everything. I've seen people thinking about glues the very first moment they have a case of securing or mounting something somewhere or fixing something, but that's not always the case. Other means of securing or fixing or mounting objects are equally effective and harmless, especially the double-sided adhesive tapes. There are some pretty good tapes out there that use strong adhesives. They don't deteriorate, they don't react with plastic, and they are excellent means of fixing objects. All I'm saying with all this is don't think of glue first. Have it as a last resort, maybe even as a backup, but don't think of it as your first option. Anyways, guys, that's my 2 cents of wisdom. That wraps it up for today. Thanks for visiting. Questions, comments, suggestions, feel free to leave them below. Stay safe and thanks for watching. You're awesome.